So the purpose of today's webinar was to cover how to read reports, because it seems that we send reports out and people either don't read it, don't know how to read it, glance at it. And so I just wanted to make sure that everyone was kind of aware of, how some of these different reports, when you open them up, they have so many different tabs and the kind of data that you should be looking at. One of the important things to remember is that when I send you a report and in the email it says you must confirm your data, that does mean you have to confirm your data, okay? So don't just look at the report and say, yeah, it looks good, I guess. You really should be reading it, looking at it, checking the numbers, and really confirming the data. So, and as you know, we send out monthly and quarterly. You receive some reports from MICA, and I hope people are reading the monthly and quarterly reports because they are valuable. And whenever then you get a report from me that says, I have to have this data and I have to have it soon, you've had the monthly and quarterly reports, you should have already been checking, so your data shouldn't be in too bad a shape. Okay? So I'm going to go over some of those reports that MICA sends out to you, and maybe one or two others that he may or may not send out to you. Okay? So the first one's going to be the report card. This report you are getting monthly. And what I've already done is I've already run all of these reports that I'm going to cover so that we don't have to wait for Art. Okay? So the data completeness report card, you really want to start with tab B. Tab B is going to tell you your grades. So whichever agency I ran this report for, they have an A, B, and A. So we have 3 good grades and actually 1 bad grade, because even though in high school a B was an awesome grade, a B is actually below our HMIS approved data limit. And the problem with that B is if you don't fix the B data now, and then you enter more bad data, you're going to drop to a C and then maybe to an F. So just because you think it looks great, these 97 A's could all of a sudden become a B in 3 months if you're not checking the data. Okay? So your first tab tells you your overall, and then of course we have always on every report that you get a client detail report. And on this report you have your client ID number. I've stripped out the client name so that I have unidentifiable data here. And then what we're looking for is we're looking for nulls, because null means missing data. Now, in some reports, I have noticed that the word null is black. So always remember that null means missing. And just because it might not be red doesn't mean it's not important or it is not required. And if it's black null today, it could be a red null tomorrow. So null means that we have some missing data. So on this particular report, we have something here in column S. And then as we scroll down, we've got a couple here and here, here and here. So, just a smattering of nulls. Oh, we got quite a few there. It probably looks like a whole family. And then we scroll down, scroll down, scroll down. So overall, we have enough red nulls on this report, in my opinion, that we should be paying some serious attention to it. Okay? Now, also remember that if you print this and you don't have a color printer, you don't get the red. Okay? And then with every report that you get from anybody, you should always take a peek at the last tab. Because the last tab tells you who, what, when, and where. And so on this particular report, it is showing me my date range. So as you can see, I have run this report for almost 1.5 years. And I also blanked out the provider name, so I'm not showing anybody like personal information or anything. But it will tell you which program that the report was run for. So sometimes I've been known to run reports and put the start date as the end date and the end date as the start date. And then you wonder why the data is all messed up. Or I ran it for one project and emailed it to the wrong person because, life happens. So always take a peek at the last tab of any report, because that could answer some questions for you right off the bat. Okay? So the report card report, I think, is an awesome report, and it really illustrates our missing data that we have. Okay? So I'm going to close that one. And then I'm going to go to the data incongruity report. Okay? So again, I checked my last tab, and my date range that I can see is for this grant cycle that we're in with DHCD. So July 1 of last year through today, well, which was actually Friday, because that's when I ran these reports. Okay? So I'm going to start at the beginning. And what I have here on this tab is, where do I have data that is what I call wanky? So if you look, we have categories A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, and I are all perfect. But then when we get to J, K, and L, we have some conflicts. So we have 2 in column J. So column J says clients where the head of household designation is yes, but it conflicts with the relationship to head of household. Okay? Then we have column K, which is the head of household designation no conflicts with the self. Okay? And then we have L, which is includes clients' records with a household membership but no household relationship. So I'm going to go to those tabs, and it will tell me which clients have this problem, and then I can go into Service Point and fix them. So what we have here is, we have, yes, a head of household, but they have not been made self. That's what that means. Okay? Then column K, we have this person is not the head of household, but you have marked them self, meaning the head of household. So that's why we have conflicts. Okay? And then column L, we have a yes and no relationship. We have a no and no relationship, and so on. So each one of these tabs corresponds to the first page of where you have data that is not right. Okay? So that's that report. Okay? The next one I'm going to do is the exit destinations and outcomes. This is yet another report that you receive from us. And again, the last tab tells me the date range and the provider. Okay? So then I'm going to go back and start at the beginning. And so what we have here is, this is where our clients went to when they left our program. Now, I don't remember which programs I ran which reports for. So this data to you might look weird, or it might look normal. And you also have to realize that when you're looking at this report, which project are you looking at it for? Because if you have an emergency shelter, you very well could have a large number of negative outcomes, because we know that with emergency shelter clients, they sometimes disappear on us, and so their exit destination is unknown. But if this particular report was run for a rapid rehousing program, we would want all of our clients in these permanent destinations. And if we didn't have a lot of them in those, we would have a large number of negative outcomes. So this report is really becoming very critical, because as some of you know who maybe just went through the ranking process, the ranking committee and HUD, and it's coming from HUD, is really focusing on, do you have positive outcomes for your clients? Okay? So whichever program I ran this for, we have 2 data not collected, so that is wrong and needs to be fixed, because it's either client doesn't know, but data not collected is missing. Okay, that's missing data. And some of you have been using no exit interview given. And I have told you in training class that sounds like an awesome answer, but it is the worst answer you can pick because it reports as missing data. It doesn't report as unknown, don't know. It reports as missing because what it's saying is that you didn't do an exit interview, but you might do it again at some other point. I'm not sure what HUD's thinking was in giving us this answer, but it reports as missing data right now. So you shouldn't be using no exit interview given. We had 34 go to other. So, you know, my question for this project would be, did they go to Mars? Out of all of those choices in the exit destination, you picked other. That doesn't, to me, that doesn't seem right because there's so many choices in the destination. So this is how you should be looking at these reports. So out of 189 people, we had 109 that were positive, 14 that were bad, negative, and 66 we're not even sure if they're good or bad because they're indeterminate, okay? So then we have some more detailed information. So we have some information on genders. So we had 188 males and 1 transgender. So this must have been run on a male single program maybe, I'm not sure, okay? Then we have households. So we shouldn't have any households because we already could tell from the first page that it was single men, okay? Then we have races, okay? So then we have ages. And then we have veteran status, okay? And then we have services. And then we have more services. We have income. And we have number of income sources. And then we have monthly totals income. And then we have client transition. So this is kind of like where they went to. Okay. And then we have the detail tab. So like I've told you, on every report that you get, you should have a detail tab. And so this report is going to give you the client ID number, and it's going to tell you that you put this client as other. When they left your program, you put them as other. And then if you scroll, data not collected, so we have to have an answer there. So, you know, if the only answer you have is don't know, that is an answer. Data not collected is not an answer. It reports as missing data, okay? And then the last tab, which we already looked at, okay? So that report you're getting, I believe, monthly or quarterly. I can't remember the when we send these reports out. And then another one you're getting is exit reasons. So along with destinations, you're getting why your clients are leaving your program. And along with HUD's positive outcomes are also positive reasons for leaving the program. So for this program, we had 113 people leave. 95 of them were positive, so that's awesome. Okay, we had 3 disappear. That's a good ratio. We had 1 reach maximum time allowed. We had 8 others. So again, other, I have to wonder why you're using other when we have choices. Okay, we maybe had a few disagree with the rules and 5 left before completing the program. Okay, and just like the last report, we have genders, households, race, age, veteran status, services, number of services, income, 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 and then again the last tab. So again, this report was run for the current cycle we're in for DHCD, and it would have been for whatever provider was listed right here. Okay, so this report has some good data on it, and it has some basic information that you should be checking on your clients. Okay. Okay. So by the time you get your APR detail report from us, if you were checking your monthly reports, when you get your APR details, which comes to you quarterly, you should have been fixing 3 months worth of monthly reports, so your detail APR should look pretty good, okay? So whichever program I ran this for, again, I ran it for July 1 through May, and they served 215 people. However, they served 2 2-year-olds by themselves. So it's highlighted. It usually, when I send these reports to you, it comes to you highlighted because that's a problem. We have only had, I believe, in the last 3 years, one agency that maybe in that 3 years has served 2 different 17-year-olds by themselves, okay? So we do not serve unaccompanied youth. It's very, very rare, okay? Summary detail, so this is going to tell us what data we have missing, and it's also going to tell us DKR, which stands for don't know or refused, okay? So in the Social Security number column, that's probably a good answer because we sometimes don't get Social Security numbers, and especially on children. We have some not so good data on children. Now down here though, we have 2 missing. So remember, if you at least put don't know or refused, you get an answer. But missing is missing. Missing is blank. So missing is bad. Okay? And then we have our age detail tab. So you know, we have your client, you have your clients listed, you have their age, gender, this one has race and ethnicity. So again, we are looking for missing, so we have a red null there. And then I'm just kind of scrolling through, and that appears to be the only thing on this tab. And then on this tab, now, some of you might have noticed this and may not have noticed this, but Bowman is starting to add legends to some of their reports. So the APR detail on some of these tabs, if you scroll to the bottom, like I've done here, has, excuse me, has a legend that kind of explains what is going on with the data above it on the same tab. So check out the bottom of some of these tabs because it might explain to you what is wrong with the report. Okay. Now on this particular report, this column right here is super duper important because one of the things that we really need to make sure we're doing is we need to make sure that we're serving the correct clients. Meaning if I'm a shelter program, I should not have clients coming from rental housing because in order for them to be served by a shelter, they have to be homeless. And then the opposite is true with prevention. You can't serve, well, I take that back, 99% of the time, you can't serve homeless people. So we really need to make sure that our prior living situation matches what our program requirements say that the client needs to be in order for us to help them. So if I'm looking at this, I can't quite tell what kind of program I ran this for. It could be a rapid rehousing program because clients in rapid rehousing programs need to be homeless, and it looks like I'm seeing more homeless answers than not, but I am seeing on this particular report a lot of rentals. So this column right here is really confusing to me because it looks like the answers are all over the map for any one given program. So I'm leaning more towards a rapid rehousing program as the type that I ran this for, but I'm also seeing some housed answers. So, you know, you need to be looking at this column when you get this report. Okay. Then we have tab E. Tab E is where you're going to find your two-year-olds. I just always use 2-year-olds, but they could be 10, 11, or 12. If we scroll down here to the bottom, we have found our household-only children. So this program served a 0-year-old child, a 1, a 4, and a 10 by themselves. So we have 2 households with only children. So that's probably not right. Just, you know, I'm kind of guessing there. And what probably happened was you added mom, and then you were like, oh, yeah, I got to add these kids. You went in and added the kids, and then you got mom and the kids separated, okay? And then it also is going to tell you households where you have no kids. So unless this is a singles-only program, you should have kids. So you should kind of be looking here. Am I supposed to have kids in my program? Because if not, I would imagine that 2 of these moms down here go with these 2 kids up here. Okay? So that's where you're going to find that missing data. And then we have 2, 3 more tabs on households. And then we have our entry-exit tab. So if you had been paying attention to your previous 2 monthly reports, your destination tab here would be looking pretty good. So I'm looking at column K here, and this is where my clients are going when they leave my program. So if this is a rapid rehousing program, that's not a good answer. Staying with family temporary, that's a bad outcome, because HUD expects all of our, remember, HUD expects all of our clients should have positive outcomes, permanent positive outcomes, okay? So another staying with family temporary, and then they are moved into a transitional program. So really got to question that. Oh, you moved them back into a hotel. That's really going in the wrong direction. Okay, so, but this is kind of stuff you should be looking for, because this is what you're going to be graded on when it comes to the ranking process for funding. So you should be looking at this column and making sure that your data matches what really, in fact, happened with this particular client. Okay. Then we have the income tab, okay, and we have a legend down here, and look how big that legend is. Okay, so how many of you hate this tab? Raise your hand. I hate it with a passion, because we now have in the system, every client can have a potential of 15 sources of income. So that means at a minimum on this tab, clients are going to have 15 rows. But as you can see with client 1209, whoever that is, she has she or he has 31 rows of income. Wow, that's just painful. That's a lot, and we need to make sure that really what we're looking for here is no red nulls. Okay, so I'm just going to kind of scroll. Oh, there's a problem. Red means bad. Blue means something. We'd have to go down and read the legend. Okay, we got a bunch of blues. Red means bad. A bunch of blue. Oh, we got some reds. So we got something missing here with this client. And then we got some more reds. Oh, got a lot of reds. Some more reds. Some blues. Looks like a different color blue too. So if we go down to the legend, way down here somewhere at the bottom. Yep, 2 different color blues. Wow, this is really long. So we just have to get down here way to the bottom. Okay, 3,000 rows. So here's red null, black null. Where is it telling me about the bright blue and the dark blue? So here's yellow. Oh my gosh, there's so much here. So is it really not telling me what the different blues mean? It's kind of look. Oh, here we go. Here we go. Here's where it tells us about the blue. Okay, so you just have to kind of read and make sense of the Japanese that's down here, because that's the way I read it. I read it as Japanese. And then go up and try to fix what's wrong. Okay? And then we have same with non-cash benefits. We have a legend. And then we have all the data. And then we have insurance. So again, we have a legend and then all the data. Disability, disabling condition. We have a legend and all the data. We don't have any duplicate clients. That's exciting. And then, of course, the last tab. So again, I'm always emphasizing this last tab. So this report was run for a particular provider, July 1 through the 13th. And most importantly here, I'm going to emphasize this right now, is this effective date. So for those of you that run reports, make sure that you always remember what your effective date is. Your effective date is always your end date, okay? And the reason why I'm emphasizing this is I just had recently 2 users call me and say, Tanya, something's wrong with my report. And when they sent me the report, the first thing I did was look at the last tab, because that's what you should do, and they had the effective date as something and their end date as something else. So I wrote back and said, yep, your effective date's wrong. Fix your effective date and rerun the report. So it really does matter, okay? So that's your APR details. You are getting that report quarterly. So when it comes time for me to send it to you, I'm usually sending it to you for a year's time period. Your data should be looking pretty good, okay? The VSHP quarterly report. So you're also getting this report from us quarterly, okay? And this report is a really, I think, kind of awesome report, because it's not only driven for satisfying the VSHP quarterly reporting requirement that you have for the state, it has a lot of useful data that you could use for any number of funding sources. So a lot of times people call me and say, Tanya, I need X data. And I'll tell you, I'm not a magician. I'm not a mind reader. I don't know necessarily right off the top of my head which report's going to give you what you want. So sometimes I might write back and say, well, why don't you run 2 of these reports and see? Or I might run the report for you and then write back and say, hey, if you run this report, here's where your data is. So you can use these reports for many different things, so don't be hung up in the name of the report, okay? Because it could be used for a lot of different things. So here's your VSHP quarterly report, and as you can see, I've run this report for 8 months worth of data. But there's a big problem that I saw when I ran this report for whichever program, is that I only have 1 quarter's worth of data. And so you might immediately write back to Tanya and go, oh my God, something's wrong. No. What this is telling me is that you have not entered any clients into the database after September 30th of last year. You have no clients in quarter 2, quarter 3, or the start of quarter 4. Oh, quarter 4 hasn't started yet. So there's nothing wrong with the report. You haven't entered in any clients, because if you had, you would see a column for quarter 1 data, a column for quarter 2, a column for quarter 3, and then you would see your final column here, which is a total of the year. So right off the bat, that should be a red flag going, why don't I have any data? Well, maybe you didn't serve anybody. I find that a little hard to believe, unless you ran out of money, okay? So we have age and genders, okay? And we have races, okay? And, you know, what we're looking for here is, do we have anything missing, which we don't, okay? And then we have ethnicities. So again, we don't have any missing, so that's good, that's exciting. Subpopulations are our veterans, DVs, elderly, and chronic, which isn't calculating correctly right now. Then we have more disabilities. We have our substance abuse and others. Where did our clients go? Okay. Length of stay. So this is a pretty cool report tab. It tells us how long our clients have stayed with us. And then if you're a shelter, so I know that there's at least one shelter person on the webinar today, and she might have a need to know total bed nights. So even though you may not actually be using ShelterPoint, you still need to know how long people stayed in your beds. So for this was run for a shelter, obviously, because there's data. And so for this shelter, whoever it was, they had 1,912 total bed nights. Okay? So, and it looks like on average that they had 6 people per night. Okay? So that seems low to me as an average. So that might be questionable, because if you have a 20-bed facility and you're averaging 6 a night, you're way less than half full. So that's intriguing. And then again, we always have our client detail tab. Oh, yep, we always have our client detail tab. So again, this is going to tell us client information, and it's going to give us wherever we have missing data. So on this particular report, because it was not generated by Bowman, it doesn't necessarily have red nulls. It's just going to have a blank where something should be. Okay? And then entry exit. So where did our clients go? Is that right? Exit. Yeah. So here's our exit destinations. We only had 3 leave, so and then disabilities and additional information again. So I ran this from July 1 to May 13th, and I also, my effective date was May 13th. Okay? So this report has very useful information on it. Okay? And the last report is the lease date report. So some of you on the phone have recently received a lease date report from me, and this was one of those reports where I did need you to definitely confirm the data. And so one of the things that we need to report on is how long did it take you to house people in a rapid rehousing program. And so what we have on this report is we have our entry date, our exit date, and our lease date, or what we call move-in date. Okay? And so what I do is I subtract this date from this date, and I get 7 days. What? No, sorry. I subtract this date from this date, and I get, it took me 7 days to house this person. So that's awesome, because we know that HUD has said we should be housing people in 30 days. Okay? So we're getting up into the 60s and 40s, some 11s, some 20s. Oh, we have no lease date. So you haven't housed this person yet? That might seem odd, so you should be wondering, well, do I have missing data? But in this case, you housed the client before they ever came into the program. So something's not right there, okay? 103 days to house them. Wow, is that true? Do we have a typo? Or that's really how long it took, okay? We again have some more negative numbers, okay? So this report here, you should really be scratching your head going, wow, is my data kind of all over the map like this? You know, is it taking me probably on average 40 days to house people? Okay, so the lease date is very, very critical. Okay, now also too, for those of you that are on the call, HUD has said that if you have clients in an emergency shelter program and you are also running a rapid rehousing program, their entry date into rapid rehousing is not their lease date, because HUD expects you to be house searching for those clients while they're staying in your emergency shelter. So I was on a webinar with HUD 2 weeks ago, and that was very plain and very decisive. Your lease date, move-in date, is not your entry date into rapid rehousing. Now, there's always an exception to every rule, and so we have some programs where a client came to a rapid rehousing program with the lease in hand. So it literally took them 0 days to house them. But that is the extreme exception and not the norm, okay? So when you get your lease date from us, when we need this data, this is what you should be looking at. You know, why do I have a negative number here? Why do I have no lease date? And, you know, where's that 103 days one? Is it really taking me 103 days to house this client, or do I have a typo? Or why am I missing all these lease dates, okay? Did I forget to go in and put it in the system, okay? So those are some basic reports that we run and send you, and, you know, how you should be looking at them and what you should be looking at and what you should be concerned with when you get them from us, okay? So I'm going to stop